Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District regular board meeting of Thursday, May 27th, 2021. Before we officially call to order, I would like to acknowledge that that the Sunshine Coast Regional District operates on the traditional territories of the Sechelt and the Squamish First Nations, and we're very grateful to be here today. With a couple of with an addition from earlier today from the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee. So I hope you have been able to access that. So with that, I'm going to ask if there are any other items. Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt this amended agenda.
Vice Chair, would you like to take over?
I think I'm going to have to take over because I think Chair Pratt's internet has died.
And I'm back.
For now, you've dropped out 2 or 3 times already on us. Do you want to keep going? Do you want to try it without your camera? Or... All right.
I can't hear you.
Everyone else can hear me though? Yeah, okay, so it's all Chair Pratt. Okay, then we do have an amended agenda. Did not catch the vote, so I'll just recall the vote then. All those in favor of the amended agenda? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Before we move into our excuse me, it's a different order on the board agenda. We do have regular board meeting minutes of May 13th, 2021. Can I have a motion to, or are there any errors or omissions in those minutes before we move to adopt? Director McMahon?
I just wanted to give a clarification about on page 7 where we were doing the grants and aid. And I went through and I was reading it, and I had to read it back twice because it seemed a little confusing. But I just wanted to clarify that the due to COVID-19 clause, what it actually means is due to the difficulties that nonprofits have faced during COVID-19, we are providing one-time funding for some items that are not normally within electoral areas GIA policy. Just in case that wasn't clear to anybody what that meant, that's what that meant.
Thank you, Director McMahon. I had to read that a couple times too to make sense of it and remember the conversation that we had on that. So are there any other notes or amendments to make to the meeting minutes before we adopt them? If not, can I have a motion to adopt? Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Thank you. Chair Pratt, are you back? Maybe not.
We can try. I'm just going to say that it looks like I don't know what's happening here with my speed, but it is pretty choppy. So we will give it a go. Everyone looks like they're stop animation right now. So claymation. My understanding we're business arising from minutes and unfinished business. Have we anything else?
Haven't done anything there yet, so.
Okay. So is there any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business? Anything from directors or anything from staff? Okay. Have we voted to receive all minutes, delegation materials, reports, and communications?
Not yet, Chair.
Okay. So may I have a motion to receive all delegation materials, reports, and communications, please? So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. So next up, we do have our delegation, which is Kathy Peters of the Be Amazing campaign. And I'm going to ask IT to bring Kathy into the presentation or into our board meeting. Okay, hi, Kathy. So before we start with Kathy's presentation, I do want to just provide a bit of a disclaimer, as this may be disturbing information to a number of residents who may be viewing this information, and it may seem, because the issue of human trafficking is, it is a very sensitive subject, and it can be very alarming to anyone who's not aware of it or maybe hearing some of this information for the first time. So I just want to advise anyone who is watching this that either now or later on our YouTube channel, but we felt it was a really important issue to have a presentation at the board. So to bring awareness to how crucial this is, and how easily it can be for young people and adults to be trafficked, and how easy it is to become vulnerable. And I feel it fits in with a lot of our priorities as a board, because we do support a lot of our vulnerable population. So through financial means, either through youth programming and everything. So we did feel this was a good fit. So for anyone who might be questioning that, no, it's an important issue. It is very timely. And with that, I'd like to welcome you, Kathy, and go ahead. You do have 10 minutes for your presentation, and then we'll have time for questions after, okay?
Great. Thank you very much. Human sex trafficking and sexual exploitation for the purpose of prostitution is the fastest growing crime in the world, and it's very much here in British Columbia. So what is human trafficking? It's the recruiting, transporting, transferring, receiving, holding, concealing, harboring, or exercising control over a person for the purpose of exploiting them. The key word is exploitation. This is modern day slavery. Here are some stats. 13 years old is the average age of recruitment into the sex industry, much younger for Indigenous girls. In the Lower Mainland, the target age now has dropped to 10 to 12-year-old girls. COVID has made this much worse because the traffickers are very organized and sophisticated. 54% are Indigenous. They are severely overrepresented in the sex industry, and the numbers are high in urban centers. This is the worst case of systemic racism in the country. I shared this with the BC Indigenous chiefs and the Federal Minister of Justice, David Lametti, a couple of months ago. At the very least, Indigenous women and girls want forensic nurses and rape kits. 82% involved in prostitution had childhood sexual abuse or incest, which is preparation for prostitution later on. 72% live with complex PTSD. This is the worst form of trauma a human being can experience. 95% in prostitution want to leave. It is not a choice. It is not a job, and it is not work. 86% have housing needs. 82% need drug rehabilitation because drugs and the sex industry are hand in hand. And here's the new stat I just got. 84% of prostituted persons are pimped or trafficked. So the vast majority are pimped out, and that usually means organized crime. Very, very few are in there of their own volition. I have been raising awareness about sexual exploitation, and specifically child sexual exploitation and trafficking, to every city council, MLA, MP, and police agency in British Columbia since the Protection of Communities and Exploited Persons Act became federal law in 2014. So I've been raising awareness about this law so the police would enforce it, so the public would understand it and be able to report it. The law has three parts. Number one, targets the demand by targeting the buyer or exploiter of sex. The predator, trafficker, pimp, facilitator, John, buyer of sex are criminalized. Number two, recognizes the seller of sex as a victim, usually female, and is immune from prosecution. Number three, exit strategies are put in place to assist the victim out of the sex trade. So this law focuses on the source of the harm, the buyers of sex and the profiteers. The clear statement from Parliament was that girls and women in Canada are not for sale, and this is the RCMP poster, that they are full human beings with dignity and human rights. Vancouver and Toronto are global sex tourism hotspots. And what people don't know is Canada is a child sex tourism destination. I got that from the TIP report 2020, that's from the US State Department. And the book that really covers all of this, it's just new, is called Sex Industry Slavery, Protecting Canada's Youth. It's written by Dr. Robert Christmas, who's a Winnipeg police officer. So the regional district has received my handouts. Those handouts are a really good start to address human sex trafficking, especially the handout that I sent on preventing child sex trafficking. That will really help you out. I have a brand new website, beamazingcampaign.org, and it's got great information there. The global sex trade is growing fast. It's targeting our children because children is where the money is. It's fueled by the internet where most of the luring is taking place. Contributing factors to rapidly growing sex industry are globalization, unregulated technology, no surprise, limited law enforcement, and very little prevention education. And that's the piece that I do. Canada has a new national human trafficking hotline number. There it is. And I did send you a wallet card. Also, provincially, we have the Office to Combat Trafficking in Persons and Victim Link, except I don't see their information out anywhere. They've got great posters, but I just don't see them being advertised. So pornography is fueling the sex industry and creating the market for commercially paid sex. Men and boys are the buyers and exploiters of sex and are the key to end exploitation. Here's a great line I just got from the Vancouver Police Department. Our boys and men must understand there's a sacred part of the woman they have no right to. So what can you do in beautiful Sunshine Coast Regional District? I recommend a very simple strategy. You want to reduce the demand by targeting complicit businesses and diminish the supply by education and public awareness. Train your business licenses in your communities, what to look for when granting business licenses. And this is a really effective way to give the message to the sex industry it's not welcome in your community. They've certainly done that in Port Coquitlam now, in Burnaby and Richmond as examples. For example, unregistered massage and body rub parlors, they're probably number one. Nail spas is probably number two. Holistic health centers, day spas, modeling agencies, tattoo parlors, escort services, cheap bars and hotels, men's clubs, Airbnb, VRBO, casinos, strip clubs, organized crime clubhouses, truck stops, homeless camps and tent cities, work camps can all be typical covers for sex trafficking and exploitation. If there are crime clubhouses, you can use land use bylaws to remove them. Regarding hotels and motels, Ontario best practices, in an effort to curb trafficking, they mandate the registration of every guest who's physically in the room. The sex industry is targeting our youth, children, and the vulnerable in every BC community, and schools are the recruiting grounds for gangs and sex trafficking. A critical deterrent are the school liaison officer programs in schools. Officers prevent crime and protect the vulnerable. An anti-police narrative harms our communities. They are the only people trained to enforce the law. BC is getting further and further behind every province in Canada in both enforcing the federal law and raising awareness with prevention education. Public awareness in BC is completely lacking. That is why, and I've been working on this for 40 years, just so you know, that is why I have sent information packages to all 190 city councils and regional districts in BC to warn you of this rapidly growing crime. So I do have 3 asks. Number 1, could I present to any stakeholders in your community, including Indigenous bands in particular? Number 2, could you alert the Premier and Solicitor General that this crime is a priority in BC? We need funding for provincial law enforcement and a provincial awareness campaign. BC also needs an interagency human sex trafficking task force, similar to what we have for drugs and gangs. It's what they have in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Nova Scotia. And finally, number 3, could you please write me a letter of support? Thank you very much.
Terrific. Well, not terrific, but thank you very much, Kathy. And The resources that you presented in front of us, I believe those are all within the delegation materials that you provided prior to, so that's fantastic. So with that, I'm going to go to the directors for questions for Kathy. Director Seegers, please.
Thank you. You held up a number of books there, and I went through your presentation. I don't see those books listed in there. Could you send us the information on the books?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I'll come back with other questions after the directors.
Okay. Director Beamish.
Hi, Kathy. We're looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday night in Gibson's as well. So look forward to that. But one question, and you didn't mention it, and that was the opioid crisis. How is that factoring into the sex trade at this time?
That's such a good question. I just got asked the same question last night at Fraser Lake Council. Somebody actually made the connection. It's all connected. The drugs in the sex industry are hand in glove. So what I say to people, if there's an opioid overdose, try to find out why. Get the backstory. There's always a backstory to any drug overdose. Try really hard to get the backstory. You might be very surprised what you find out.
Thank you.
Back over to Director Seegers, please.
Thank you. So I have two pieces. Are you doing any education within the school districts?
I've been working on this for 40 years. I've been full-time on this for the last 7 years, basically training politicians, all three levels of government and all of law enforcement. I mean, I've actually had to help law enforcement get up to speed. They are now, and we're working really, really close together. Ever since Vancouver, I don't know if you're watching the news in the Lower Mainland, Vancouver School Board removed the school liaison program. And then the next day, New West did the same thing. I did have a chance to speak to Vancouver School Board. They didn't get it at all. They've given the green light now to organized crime. Organized crime will swarm in there. And New West, they refused to have me present. Instead, they had anti-police groups from Toronto come out and present. I am presenting to Richmond School Board, and I have a presentation to Burnaby School Board. I'm working on Abbotsford School Board. I live in North Vancouver, and I've alerted West Van and North Van School Board. I was interviewed on CKNW by Mike Smith, and he said, "Aren't you concerned that this is going to spread?" And yeah, disaster. We can't have that spread. So in terms of, I'm trying to get to school boards. Normally to get into school districts, into schools, you have to go via the school board. It's not so easy, even though I'm a teacher. Now, that being said, 2 weeks ago, I presented in a high school in Smithers and then in a high school in Penticton. So I'm more than willing to present in schools. I've got a whole school presentation I can do. I do this for free. I'm a mother bear. I'm angry. I can do this. And if you have recommendations or anybody that you can pass my name on to, awesome.
I would suggest you reach out to the PACs, so the parent advisory councils, because those will be the parents who have children in their school, and they'll be able to get on your side to support having their children learn about this. It will also provide information to the parents about what to watch for.
Well, and a bigger bang for the buck that way might be with the district parent advisory council, because then you'll have representatives from each one of the parent advisory councils at each school as well. So that's always a good fit too.
Okay, and then one final, you talked about business licenses, information going out with business licenses. So the regional district doesn't have business licenses. So that's not something that they could do. So you might want to give some thought to how that could be supported by the regional district, given they don't have that vehicle. At the municipalities we do, and I know you're presenting to District of Sechelt next week, I believe. Right. So you'll be in Gibson's and Sechelt next week. So some other avenue potentially for regional districts where they don't have business licenses. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Director Hiltz.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Kathy, for the presentation. I was following up on the business license. You mentioned other jurisdictions and what they're doing with their business licenses and alerting the premises, and particularly short-term rentals. If you could say something more about what you know about the short-term rentals and how other communities are. I'm not sure how they're managing with their business licenses? What do you know about that?
I don't know a lot about it, except, I mean, when I started presenting, the first place that asked me to present was Tri-Cities. I mean, I was right out there with Port Coquitlam. I mean, that's Robert Picton territory. So Port Coquitlam is very, very up on this because they don't want another Picton to happen. So they don't allow Airbnb in Port Coquitlam. They also don't allow unregistered massage parlors. Just doing those two actions has just clamped down on the sex industry, and the sex industry then has moved into Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam, which isn't good, but Port Coquitlam doesn't want this anymore. I just presented to Burnaby Social Planning Department, and they don't allow any unregistered massage parlors. So they say absolutely no, because they see what's happening in Vancouver. Vancouver's a disaster. Everybody knows the sex industry is very active in the unregistered massage parlors. Richmond also has really big problem with the massage parlors, and they aren't allowing any new ones to come on board. So they're sort of fading out. So that's what I know about those areas. Business licensing, it's just a tool. And I was given that information as I've presented over the years.
Okay. Director McMahon, please.
I'm just wondering if we should refer the presentation material to the policing committee. Because I'd be interested in knowing what the situation here locally on the coast, because my impression is that often folks are recruited in rural areas and then they go into the city.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's a huge industry here on the ground. But how would I know?
Would you like to move that, Director McMahon, to refer this to the next policing committee?
Yep.
Okay. And I see that seconded. I'm going to call the question on that. All those in favor, please. Thank you. Do we want to ask Ms. Peters to also present at that committee, or just the materials? Or we can check with availability. How does that sound? Do we need to make that part of the motion, corporate officer? But we're referring it to committee. That's fine. Okay. All right. So that would be allow for a greater time for discussion, Kathy, and as well as with our local RCMP representatives and along with representative of the school board as well. So that would be. It's a great spot to have another presentation and a more casual conversation about it as well. Okay, Director Hiltz.
The next policing is July 15th here at 2:00.
Okay, and if we do have this if that works out the time wise, we should maybe look at it because it'll be after. Is it after transportation? Is transportation
planning, then police, then transportation?
Okay, I think we may want, depending on what the agenda looks like, we may need to put look at how the conversation goes. It might be a little bit longer with a special presentation, but typically our policing committee agendas tend to be a little bit on the smaller side anyway. So we'll probably be fine for a good, robust conversation. So, okay. Director McMahon, was there something else?
Yeah, just if we're going to go long, it might even be a thought to move the start time earlier rather than try to push transportation, because transportation tends to run long. Just saying. Okay.
So can we maybe look at that? Do we need to make that as a motion right now, corporate officer, or we can look at it and post it? Perfect. Okay. So we'll look at that with staff, or staff will take a look at that and go from there. Perfect. Wonderful. I'm not seeing any other questions, but I would just really like to raise my hands and thank you so much for this really important work that you're doing, Kathy. It's it's a bit shocking, and I know you've just touched on like just the bare minimum with us in a very short time period, and we really appreciate that, and we're looking forward to a more robust conversation and talking more about the issue in July. So I hope you will be able to make that meeting. So
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So seeing no further questions, thank you so much for being here with us today, and we will see you in about a month and a half.
Great.
All right. Take care. Oh, except for, I guess, our municipal directors. I'll see you next week.
Okay.
So excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Directors, moving on. Next up on our list, we have reports. So first up is Annex C, number 4 on the agenda, which is the Infrastructure Services Committee recommendations, numbers 1 through 5 and 9 to 16 of May 13th, 2021. That's pages 13 to 17 on our package. Directors, are there any of these recommendations that you would like to pull for separate debate prior to us moving them as a block? Okay, I'm not seeing any movements, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt these recommendations of infrastructure services from May 13th, 2021. So move Director Ties, seconded by Director McMahon. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. Next up, Annex D, pages 18 to 23 of our package, number 5 on the agenda. And this is the Planning and Community Development Committee recommendations, numbers 1 to 16 of May 20th, 2021. Director McMahon.
Yes, I'd like to pull recommendation 11 from the AAC, which is on page 21.
Okay, so you're going to pull number 11 from the AAC. Okay, and directors, any of those other recommendations that you would like to pull? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt the recommendations, numbers 1 through 10 and 12 through 16 of May 20th, 2021. So a move, Director Toth, seconded Director Seegers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, motion carries. And Director McMahon, over to you for recommendation number 11, please.
Yes, I'd like to defer this recommendation until we can have a further discussion about the role of the AAC.
Okay, so do you have a specific timeline in mind, or just do you want to defer it to a specific time or committee place, or?
How about the board meeting after planning? I'm not sure. I was going to say the next board meeting, but we might not have time to get into it. Well, yeah, what the heck? Next board meeting.
So to our next board meeting, which would be the second Thursday in June.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, okay. So that's, is that clear to everyone? So Director Seegers, are you seconding that? Okay. All right. So, and any further discussion on that? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. And my apologies. Everything every once in a while kind of goes robotic on me. So you got to love technology. You got to love it and hate it at the same time. Okay, so next up is 5A on our agenda, and this is pages 23A to B. And this is from earlier today. It's the Corporate and Administrative Services Committee recommendations numbers 8 and 10 to 14 of May 27th, 2021. I would also like to note that we do have Doug Anastas from TELUS in our gallery if we do have any additional questions. And we can certainly always bring him in, as some of these recommendations are related to the TELUS towers going forward. So first off, directors, are there any of these recommendations you would like to further debate before we adopt them as a block? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt these recommendations from Corporate and Administrative Services of May 27th, 2021. So moved, Director Ties, seconded, Director McMahon. Any further discussion? Any questions for Doug before we leave him or let him loose? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. And there you go, Doug. Next up, we have Annex E, pages 24 to 28 of our package, and number 6 on the agenda. And this is the Office of the Corporate Administrative Officer Monthly Report. So over to CAO McKinley, please.
Thank you. Nothing particular to add to the report other than that you may have noticed that the report has changed in terms of name just a tiny bit. It now says Office of the CAO Monthly Report instead of CAO Monthly Report. And that's really to recognize the incredible contributions that Tracy Hinks makes to these monthly reports. I felt that it seems like a minor thing to rename it in this way, but I think it more accurately and fairly represents her incredible contributions. And I wanted to recognize that somehow. And this seems like a small thing, but I hope it is something that is recognized and appreciated for all the work that she does. And if you have any questions on the report, I'm happy to answer any of them.
Thank you, CAO McKinley. And we also greatly appreciate Executive Assistant Tracy Hinks. She does an incredible amount of work for us to support not just you, but all of us across the regional district. As I think we all have noticed how much we appreciate her. All right, directors, any questions for the CAO? Director Hiltz?
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, I was looking at the Let's Talk Water. I can spend quite a bit of time wandering around that. It draws me. It feels a bit addictive, like it's designed to engage me. So it's working. The question that I had is, do the people signing into it see the same stuff as the people who haven't signed into it? I have an account there, and I'm not sure. I haven't really, but is the intent that everyone sees the same thing, whether they're logged in or not? I wasn't quite sure. I'm not sure if you have any insight into that.
Well, I hadn't anticipated follow-up questions I wouldn't know the answer to, so thanks for that. If there's anyone on here that happens to know the answer, please feel free to chime in. Oh, I think our corporate officer knows. Thank you, Sherry.
Over to you, corporate officer.
So my understanding is that anyone can view the page, but if you want to comment or participate, then you would register.
Content is the same, so that it's just the commenting that would be the difference. Okay, thanks. Yeah, it is a fun place to wander around. It's not the typical SCRD website. It's different. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, not the typical SCRD website. That's gotta love that. Director Seegers.
Thank you. There's one very short line on page 28. Which I think is going to lead to a lot of work for staff. And that is preparing for potential changes to public health orders next week. So not only next week, but the next month and the next month and the next month. So they've been responding, ongoingly through this pandemic opening and closing. And that one line means there's a lot of work that they're going to be doing over the next while. So I want to acknowledge our recreation staff and our planning staff who are doing all the work behind the scenes as they're rolling these out in response to the changes provincially.
Yeah, as we were talking about before the meeting, hug day may be coming, but it's we've got a long ways before that happens, and with the health orders as they adjust and change and things reopen, it's moving targets. So, and hopefully numbers stay low and vaccinations continue to be done. So any other questions? I'm anticipating that we'll be talking about the last night's Let's Talk Water event in the director's reports. So we won't question it too much here. But with that, anything else for the CAO? Okay. So thank you, CAO McKinley, and thank you very much, EA Tracy Hinks. So with that, we'll move on to our communications and Annex F, pages 29 to 31. The Mayor of Seegers, the Mayor of Seychelles, Director Seegers has sent us a communication, and we also have a joint communication from a number of ministers. So because we have the privilege of having Mayor Seegers sit at our table, would you like to speak to the communications that you have sent us regarding BC ferries and Route 3?
Sure, thank you. I have to say it's kind of strange to see a communication from me on one of these agendas. It's a little surreal. This letter was in response to the information that the community put forward during the potential rollout of the trial, and the fact that they expressed they would like to see additional service. So in communication with Councillor McLean, who sits on the Ferry Advisory Committee, and in conversation with BC Ferries, they indicated that this would be a way for us to be able to have BC Ferries do the work to determine what options are available that could be proposed to the province to provide additional service. So the letter actually requests that the minister have BC Ferries look at the options, because there are a number of options. They could use a smaller ferry, they could use a used ferry, they could use a passenger ferry, but the province, the minister actually has to request that they do that work. So that's what's behind this letter. We suggested it go out to the various governments on the Sunshine Coast, so that should you wish to support it as a board, a letter from the regional district could also go to the minister.
Okay. Directors, any questions for Director Seegers / Mayor Seegers? And Director Hiltz.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So BC's ferries would not initiate, like I'm wondering, they initiated the trial on their own, or that. So it would be something different than that. I'm not quite sure how the minister requests BC Ferries and why BC Ferries can't initiate it, or is this a nudge to get them to do it? I'm just.
No, BC Ferries has actually had conversations with the province, and the province looks at our route and says, you're not at full capacity. You're only at 66% capacity. Why should you put another ferry on? So there's no support financially from the province for additional service, particularly with another ship and staffing and all of those kinds of things. So this would be looking at what are the various options and what would that need to look like from potentially fares on the Sunshine Coast and or provincial guarantees about base funding. So they could look at all of those bits and pieces to be able to come up with some options that the province and the residents may accept.
Okay. Director McMahon, then Director Ties.
I agree with this. I mean, the levels of service under the contract certainly need to be reviewed, because my understanding is that BC Ferries is actually delivering above the contracted requirement at this time.
There.
And it's obviously not enough. At the same time, I think our recent experience highlighted some other problems, such as I think there is a lack of confidence on the part of the public in the transparency of the decision making, and possibly BC Ferries' capacity to carry out some of the things that they would like to try. And I think that was one of the things that came up with the reservation system, is that people did not have confidence that it would actually work, based on a number of things, but partly the unpopularity of the current website. So this is a good first step, but there needs to be a next step as well. I'm not sure what it is. It's certainly not us that needs to lead that parade. I think we should request that our MLA look at options for an improved relationship with BC Ferries.
Director Ties?
Yeah, I was just being tweaked by the mention of the 66%, and one of the things that's always struck me is that the Sunshine Coast Ferry is by far the latest running ferry in Horseshoe Bay, maybe across the entire fleet, which means that our latest ferries are usually close to empty, but they bring our overall percentage down. So if we cancel the last two sailings of the evening, I'm sure we would probably be somewhere in the 80s, and would warrant another ferry. But I think so. I'm not sure exactly what the motivation was to add these really late and unpopular ferry sailings. But I think it's something that should be part of the discussion. Is that you need ferries when people want to travel, and not ferries when people are, would rather stay at home on the couch or already be where they want to be.
Director Lee.
Yeah, I remember the uproar when we took those late night ferries off. So, but I think that 66% or whatever it is actually misstating our problem. Mm-hmm. Our problem is that we have commuters, heavy commuters, because you can, and we have heavy weekend travelers, not just to the lower Sunshine Coast, but the upper Sunshine Coast as well. And therefore we are wholly unserved at that time. And so the statistics aren't really indicative of the need. I think they need to understand how full we are when the need is there. But I don't know how you'd put that there. And I guess I don't know if it would be necessary for this letter. I'm just thinking out loud to see if there's anything we could do to strengthen the letter.
Director McMahon?
Yeah, the other problem is when you've only got one ferry, you don't have any flexibility in terms of how you can adjust your service levels to meet peak demand. So, obviously they do need to look at different options.
Okay, so I've gotten to the end of the speakers list. Do I hear a motion or a letter of support along these lines, or something? Nothing or something? I'm going to go Director Hiltz.
Yeah. So throwing the SCRD support behind the letter, I think would be a suitable thing to do. Just the letter is great. I think it specifies that we just need to kind of become a supporter and a signatory to it, to add some Team Sunshine Coast oomph to the process. So whether so it's supported. I don't. Is that enough? I think it's enough just to say we're on board.
We're on board with the letter to the boat people, or to the boat company. Director Beamish.
Yeah, I think the one thing we need to encourage with BC Ferries, and in fact offer, is a better two-way communication between the people of the Sunshine Coast and BC Ferries and vice versa. They need to be more involved in understanding what the issues are here. And we can talk about the 66%, and we can explain it in many different ways. And that we need to have that analysis and that conversation with them. But it needs to be ongoing. It can't be just every few months popping up with a different idea. And we can't leave it all to the BC Ferry or to the Ferry Committee. I think we need to look for a way that we can open up that communication and have a regular dialogue whether it's Mark Collins or Brian Anderson, and have a regular dialogue with them about some of the issues that we're seeing and we're hearing, and provide a vehicle as well for people to have input in that dialogue. So I don't know how to do it, but I think that's one thing that was missing last time. They came to town with an idea and said, please support it. And between ideas, there doesn't seem to be much conversation. Surveys, yes, but not conversation. So somehow we need to express to them that they need to be in a better, be better in touch with the community and the community issues around the ferry. I don't know. Yeah.
I'll note that I've just actually, as the representative to the Ferry Advisory Committee, just received a meeting invite for next week on June the 3rd with the Ferry Advisory Committee and BC Ferries. So it's a very timely discussion that we're having right now if we wanted to put a letter of support forward for this. So Director Seegers, you had your hand up.
Yes. So I think the one sentence that I'd request that the board get behind is at the top of the second last paragraph. So this is to the minister. It says, we would request your office direct BC Ferries to study options for increasing service on Route 3. All the rest of it is, background or ideas or whatever, but that's the one that we'd like support for, because that would then have the minister give that direction to BC Ferries.
Okay. All right. So Director McMahon, would you like to make that as a motion? Okay. And do I have a seconder for that? Seconded, Director Hiltz. Jennifer, our recording secretary, did you get that?
I do. I can read it back if you like.
Yes, please, just so we're clear.
So I have that the correspondence be received for information, and that the SCRD board provide a letter to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure requesting BC Ferries be approached by the province to study various options to increase the ferry service level for Route 3, Langdale / Horseshoe Bay.
Perfect. I think I see a lot of nods and thumbs up all the way around. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. With that, I've also had a request about the ferry advisory meetings are supposed to be public. I will confirm with the on that, Director McMahon, and forward a link if that is the case on this this particular meeting. So I know it is supposed to be in the public realm, but I have to confirm with our chair first. Okay. Perfect. Okay. With that, the next communication item, and thank you, District of Sechelt, very much, and Mayor Seegers and your team for forwarding this over to us and also speaking to it here. Next up, we have a letter from the province from Ministers Ralston, Osborne, and Heyman. And I'm just wondering if there's any comment or anything that directors would like to question or respond to. And this is in regarding our letter on the Help Cities Lead campaign. So, Director Seegers.
Thank you. I think this came up for me and the rest of the board when we started looking at drywall and the fact that if we're doing renovations, the drywall has to be dealt with. So I know that Chair Pratt and I both brought that up with our MP on our call last Friday. We need to have additional options or sites or whatever for residents in British Columbia to be able to deal with drywall, contaminated drywall. So it's great that we're looking at, existing building renewal strategies and putting money out for people to get energy retrofits done on their house. But as soon as we start dealing with the drywall, we run into this issue. So I don't know if we want to address that with this group in response, but it is something that needs to be brought up. It needs to be put on the front burner for them, because the more they're going to be funding residents to upgrade their houses, the more we have to deal with the contaminated drywall and other pieces with asbestos in them on the back end. And I don't see any focus provincially on dealing with that.
Okay. Director McMahon and then Director Lee.
I actually think it's broader than that because, for instance, there are no energy advisors. There are no new ones being trained. So in rural areas, if you are ready and you have the money to retrofit your home, you can't do it. There's really no way forward. And so, I think these programs are really designed for cities, and they don't take the needs of more rural and remote communities into consideration.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with what Director Seegers was saying, but I think we also need to add deconstruct and reuse, because here we are proposing that we're going to do something green, and we're actually doing exactly the opposite. We're polluting. We're making more garbage. So they need to look at the whole. Words are nice. The how needs to be in there. So I think we should reply, and we should make our concerns known to them.
Director Seegers, back to you.
Thank you. I believe it's the federal budget, and Chair Pratt could confirm this for me. In the federal budget, if it gets passed, there actually is funding to provide training for the staff that are required for the upgrades here for these types of positions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was within the, I believe if it will be within the federal budget if it does get passed, or if it's not debated out, I guess. So we'll have to wait on that. It will be significant going forward, and as Director Seegers has said, there's with all of these initiatives going forward with home renovations, etc., and so it's just it's going to continue to be an issue, especially for our area. So anything else on this, or any action that the board would like to take, or at this time, Director McMahon?
Yeah, I don't think we need to write a letter on the fly here. That's not the best way forward. So take it under advisement.
Okay. Sound good? Terrific. Okay. All right. So we have, I'm going to move on to, we have no motions. We have no bylaws, but we have directors, and with directors come directors' reports. So we are going to once again do the volunteer program, but there's going to be one voluntold first, and that's going to be Director Toth, mainly because he and I both were able to attend the water dialogue session last night, and I'd like to get that one. I'd like to talk about that one with both of us first, because maybe I'll start and then go on to Director Toth, and then we'll continue on through. But first off, I wanted to say thank you very much to staff, so to Remco and Jen and your team for putting on the with all of the work on that, and along with Aiden and Dean, and making that event happen last night. That was fantastic. We had a lot of really good questions. We unfortunately lost Director Seegers partway through due to a computer malfunction. Technology is not always our friend, but we had a really great conversation, a lot of really interesting questions around water and water meters, and around the AAP going forward. And then just another piece on the AAP. If you have a chance to stop by the regional district office and see how the setup is, our corporate officer and our deputy corporate officer are taking turns. They've commandeered GM Hall's office, and they actually have a walk-up window that you can go and you can ask questions to. So any member of the public during this process can come back and ask questions during, if anything, about the AAP process. And I just think that's a fantastic use of resources to allow that accessibility for the public. So I just commend staff for taking that additional step, and I think that's it's a really cool setup. And I got my first tour via FaceTime from the CAO, and so next time I'm hoping for coffee as I come by, but drive up window, but. Just to go back to the water dialogue last night, was, as I said, it was a really well-run event. Thank you very much to all the staff that was involved with that. And that's really all I had on my report, but I'd go over to, I'd like to, GM Rosenboom just said that there's, we've also had 45 additional views of the Let's Talk YouTube recordings since the event finished yesterday evening. That's fantastic. And those will continue to be on our YouTube website, which is, you can link off of that off of scrd.ca. And of course, all of those water questions are there. So with that, I'm going to go over to Director Toth, and you can finish off with your report and any observations from last night.
Thank you. The one thing, yeah, I was a little nervous going into it. I tuned into a little bit of the previous water dialogue meeting that was held a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't really sure what to expect going into last night, and I really appreciated the respectful and the educated questions. There were no like, what's a water meter? Like, everybody who had questions, they were very respectful. They were very well thought out, and they contributed a lot to the conversation and that dialogue. I haven't had a chance to look at the Let's Talk page, scrd.ca/Let's Talk, to see if there have been any more questions or discussion happen there yet, but that's good to hear that there is some traction, some viewing happening of that after the fact. In addition to the Let's Talk Water last night, at Seashell Council, we saw a request from the Pickleball Association through our parks manager to look at possibly doing some changes to the Hackett Park tennis courts to facilitate pickleball in there as well, sort of separating the space so that tennis could have a dedicated court and pickleball could have some dedicated courts, and our staff are going to be doing some public engagement on that to see what of the sports people play, how they feel about that sort of thing. So that's good news. the Pickleball Association has been trying to find a home. We had some really good conversation with them right before COVID hit, and they've been just sort of trying to figure things out through COVID. We also had a noise exemption request for work being done up at the airport. It's going to be early morning trucking, that sort of thing, as part of the runway resurfacing. So residents on Field Road are going to be higher than usual truck traffic while we get that project finished up. And then other than that, I got my COVID shot last week, Moderna, and my daughter goes in for her shot next week. So it's nice to be moving forward. And it was great to be in it was at the senior center. It was great to be in the senior center with a whole room full of people, and just it was a lot of people that you could feel the relieved sort of atmosphere in the room of people that are feeling like we're finally starting to come out the other side of this. So that's really all I have today. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Director Toth. I'm going to look to our next volunteer. I'll go Director Seegers and then over to Director Lee.
Thank you. As part of our last meeting, we also said that we would put forward a formal request for an additional RCMP officer. So funding for that would not be until next year, because I said it would take about 6 months to get through the process to get somebody in line for that. Then I attended the Seashell Downtown Business Association meeting. Their BIA bylaw is up for renewal, so we're going to see that coming forward in the next area. That's the Business Improvement Area bylaw will be coming forward. That is an AAP sort of format as well. So they have to do some work with all of the businesses in the area who are part of this, because just like our AAP, if they get sufficient numbers of businesses and a certain percentage, is it not both? I think it's a certain number of
it's all property owners,
but also assessments.
Mm-hmm.
If it's over a certain threshold, then this gets defeated and it doesn't go forward. And they typically come forward for a 5-year business improvement area. So that's going to be coming forward, I think, in the next couple of months here. We had Taste of Seashell in downtown Seashell, so it was kind of cool. I went, checked out a few of the restaurants with some of the things they had. They have their summer student back. This is a fellow who was with them last year, did a lot of support for the businesses in getting them online, getting online marketing, etc. So he's back and he's going to be doing some more work with them around that. Canada Day was talked about. It is going to be the tour, the tour through Seashell again, and I believe is Director Toth is going to be the parade director or whatever you want to call it.
Finalized the parade routes last night.
Perfect. All right, then I had the opportunity to take part in the virtual graduation at Chattelet Secondary School and for the alternative school. So they'll be putting those videos together, and those of us who took part will have a link. And then I want to let everybody know the popsicle stick bridge testing is this Sunday. It's one of the events that I really enjoy. They did it last year on Zoom, and they'll be doing it again this year. You don't have to check in for the whole thing, but check in and watch what they do. It's fun watching the bridges get smushed with the weight on them. They break them up. So it's kind of cool. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Excellent. Bridges getting smushed. That's one time that you actually want to see it happen, is watch a bridge get smushed. And okay.
It's awesome.
Such glee. I have Director Lee and then Director Hills. Director Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I realize that it's best to go early because then you don't have to cross things off your list. On May 13th, I attended the Community Forest Open House, and I thought it was really well done, and I thought they were really well prepared. And in fact, there was what I'd call a lot of hardball questions. but the answers were very reasonable and completely made sense. It's too bad all of our private forest companies don't do that. We need to work towards so that we do get that. On May 14th, I was supposed to be at the emergency housing communication meeting, but they have it at 3 o'clock on a Friday. I tell you, I haven't made one yet. So if someone else wanted to attend in my place, I'd sure gladly give it up. I don't think I'll ever make one. Again, on the May 18th, I attended the Solid Waste Plan Monitoring Committee, and it's always so very well done. And I learned a lot from attending. And I just have to mention that Robin is sure knowledgeable and sure sets the tone for that meeting and adds a lot to it. So well done to her, and I enjoy everyone. I attended the SCRHD board hospital meeting. It's a good meeting, but I never did figure out why the offer to explore more parking next door to the hospital on seashell land was not jumped on. Maybe someone will explain that to me sometime in the future, but it seems like there's such a need for that kind of parking, and why it wasn't explored, I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that. On a more positive note here, I did the AVIC election voting for the officers, the VP directors at large. I found the format was extremely good on that. I think it's even better than the in-person, because you can go and look at it and then vote, and you can compare them all, and it's a nice consistent format. And you do it when you're fresh and bright. On the other side, though, voting on motions, it was a good format to make us understand the background, but I really missed the debate part. You know, I like to hear the opposed point of view before I actually vote, and we don't get that from the format. But I can't see how they could possibly make it any better. It was easy, and when you went to vote, you could click on and get the background and then make your vote. So, but I really look forward to the in-person. And I did attend the water dialogue, and I watched, and I was surprised that there was like over 40% people that were outside the truly affected areas there. I was a little surprised. They did a little poll. But anyways, I really noticed sitting back watching that water dialogue was really much more positive than the earlier ones. You guys got a pretty easy ride, and I think people were trying to help. So I had to, and I did text Lori a comment about how to save water, and I actually got a chuckle out of her. So that was, I had a success. It was something about showering with a partner. Anyways, that's my report. Thank you.
So for context, that was the reducing, shorter showers and that kind of thing. And when we did the water dialogues in Gibson's 2 years ago, or that one of the comments from one of the audience members was, you should shower with a partner. And I remember one of our directors, and I remember which one it was too, suggested that, that may not always relate to less water use. It might be a longer shower with a partner. So it was tongue in cheek, and yes, it did provide a one of those inside jokes that we do have. So, but that was thank you, Director Lee. That was quite funny. So I have Director Hiltz and then Director McMahon.
Thanks, Chair. I'll pick up the Let's Talk Water theme. I think it's going easier because we're getting to a finer point. We're not talking about all kinds of things. The focus of the conversation is really focusing, and for me, there's a lot of listening from staff in WASAC. I see a lot of that discussion going into the materials. Those infographics, simple, clear, big text, not a lot of detail, just really focused. So it's really impressive that. But I know how much effort it takes to make something look simple. there's a lot of work behind that. So yeah, real congratulations on the quality. And I think WASAC, I think they're going to see really be pleased with what how they've contributed to that process. Gibson's and District Public Library, I met with their governance committee to talk about how the SCRD liaison votes at their board and how it might conflict with SCRD as a funder. So that's an interesting discussion that's going to keep going on, but I really appreciated their time. June 1st is a workshop coming up. I'm going to the BC Library Trustees Association. They're holding a workshop called So You Want a New Library. So that's a topic that's going on there. So a chance to find out what's going on in the province. And just a small note, I was able to attend the emergency communication meeting for the call to action, which is those Friday afternoon meetings. And I'll be going to at least another one. I think we'll see. It seems to be moving along, and there might not be a lot of room for the unelected official at that meeting as we move forward. So we'll see how that one goes in the future. So that's it. Thank you.
Great. Director McMahon, over to you, and then after that will be Director Beamish.
Great. Well, sorry, folks, I didn't see your Let's Talk Water because I was at my APC last night. The highlight of my last 2 weeks was actually the records management workshop yesterday. I had a great time. That was so interesting. We really got to dig into how all this stuff works, and I really appreciated that one. What else? I've been to a lot of things. I attended the Community Forest Open House. We had the MODI meeting with rural directors. There was PMAC. There was the workshop on sea level rise. Gibson's Chamber was very interested in ferries and drywall. No big surprise there. One of the ones that was really interesting was the Climate Caucus had a rural and small communities meeting, and it was a workshop with Don Lidston on the powers of local governments to respond to the climate emergency. So among other things, I learned a whole new acronym. I don't know, some of you have probably heard of a quango. A quango is a quasi-autonomous non-governmental organization. But I discovered there's also a gongo. And a gongo is a government-organized non-governmental organization. And unlike charities, gongos can lobby for legislative change. And there were some examples, none of which I can think of at the moment, but I'll go back and dive into gongo land at some point. The other thing that came out in that workshop, and I'm sure I've heard this in the past, but it was nice to get a refresher. In the U.S., local governments get a slice of income tax and sales tax and other taxes. And in Europe, local governments only rely on property tax for 20% of their revenues. And the Canada was described in this context as antediluvian. And for those of you who haven't checked up on antediluvian lately, and that's for our funding structure, that's before the biblical flood. So we are really disadvantaged in our ability to respond to the emergencies and the pressing needs that we face. In Area E, I'm getting a lot of questions from residents. There's a huge amount of development going on. And I guess, of course, with everybody home too, folks are really noticing it. So I've had a lot of interaction with the community in the last 2 weeks. Pretty much all the large parcels of land that are undeveloped in Area E are slated for development now. They're either, actively being constructed or the plans are underway or whatever. And citizens are really concerned about how they can get involved in this process. And it's very frustrating for me because the way in to get input in this situation that we're in with MODI is really not clear, and it's difficult. So I met with the residents of the Tapahari Road about Georgia Crest Park. They went in there and had a broom busting expedition. They are sort of stewarding their undeveloped local park, which is pretty cool, and I appreciate them doing that. And then finally, it's BC timber sales time of the year again. The operating plan is out there. The deadline for public engagement appears to be June the 11th, although that is not made clear on their website. And my inquiries so far by email and phone call have not gotten me anywhere. But, you know, if your constituents are concerned, please alert them to the fact that this public engagement is underway. The SCRD has a longer deadline for response, but I think a lot of people are very concerned, especially around Egmont and on the lower coast around Mount Elphinstone. One thing that came out of a meeting that somebody else attended was that the Sunshine Coast Forest District will be getting a timber supply review this year. And this is really important because it sets the annual allowable cut, and that drives everything. So that process is going forward this year, and whatever comes out of it will be open for public comment in October. So we should be aware that that's coming down. I think that's everything for me.
Thanks, Director McMahon. Up next, Director Beamish, and then Director Ties.
Yes, thank you. And everybody's busy. We've got the council meeting coming up next week. We have a code of conduct discussion happening on the meeting, looking at the UBCM code of conduct as a base model. And we'll also be looking at the community amenity bylaw early in the afternoon with urban systems and any proposals they have for us to consider. This week I had a meeting with Naomi Brunmeyer of BT Housing, talking about some of the projects we have here in Gibson. And good conversation, very supportive, but there are some recommendations that are before the minister now that I don't know where our projects stand on those, and we'll have to wait for the information released by the minister's office. I have one inquiry so far about municipal homeowner grant online. Oops, I got some dogs chatting away in the house here.
Not my dog.
And the biggest challenge on it is, number one, some people just don't like their financial information online. They don't do their business online. And I don't know if this is traditional, but they are asking you to submit your social insurance number. And that was the biggest complaint that this person had, is to put the social insurance number into the province for a homeowner request. So I anticipated that. I brought that up with council a couple of weeks ago, saying I think we're going to hear about that. So it's just starting, because all the homeowner grants are online this year. You can't claim it on the form, tax form. Our wildlife protection bylaw will get second reading, I think, tomorrow night, or rather Tuesday night, depending upon, and it'll go forward depending upon the suggestions for amendments. I participated with the Alfie and the alternate school grads as well, and we were able to announce to them basically a tripling of the scholarship this year, which is money from our COVID funds, recognizing the students that had a tough year themselves in terms of earning money from odd jobs or from jobs. So we increased our scholarship commitment to these schools to $3,000 from a normal $1,000 scholarship. So I'm pleased the council will resolve that on Tuesday night. And I had an email forward with them, and they agreed to that. So, and then finally, tonight and tomorrow will be the ABICC. How many from the board here are with ABICC? Okay, good. We'll look forward to seeing you at the trivia contest tonight. I'm sure that Donna will win it, but we'll be there anyway. So thanks, everyone.
Before I go to Director Ties, Director McMahon, did you have a comment or a question for Director Beamish?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the homeowner grant because, we've been able to apply online in the regional district for years, and I don't remember being asked for a social insurance number. So is this a new requirement?
I think it's a new requirement, and it's on there now. You have to, the funny thing about it is that when you put it in, the only thing that comes up is the last 4 digits. So why don't they just ask for the last 4 digits of your social insurance number? Because they block out the rest of it. So it is there, so that I'm sure. Now, whether that's just for the seniors grant, I don't know. Take a look at it.
Okay. Director Toss, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I just wanted to add into the homeowners grant conversation because I did do mine between meetings, and yeah, I was surprised to see that you had to do the social insurance number as well, because in the municipalities you would apply through the municipality, and it wasn't a requirement for us previously. So that is a change. It is a requirement on the BC website. You can't opt to not fill it in. The one thing I did want to mention, even though it is online, anybody who doesn't have internet or computer access, you can apply for the homeowners grant at any Service BC location. And you can also have anybody complete the application on your behalf. So kids, family, friends, your niece, whatever. It doesn't have to be you making the declaration, which I believe is also a difference from in previous years. I think the homeowner had to make the declaration in previous years.
Which means you have to give your social insurance number to a third party.
Yeah. Okay. So, Director Ties.
Thank you. Yeah, I watched I can't remember if it was a documentary lately or something on TV where somebody was talking about Lithuania and how their whole government system is now 100% online. You don't need to go into any kind of government offices anymore, whether it's renewing your driver's license or yeah, you just have a personal identification number, and it's totally public, whatever your number is. You have a password on top of it, so, and you can access your medical records and everything. Anyway, kind of neat. Lithuania is 100% online, and you have access to all your information and what you want to share. But I don't have a ton to report. I did attend the Sunshine Coast Youth Action Advisory Council this week and learned that Camp Elphinstone is closed until further notice. And that also there are some job availabilities within that realm, including a 40-hour-a-week for 10-week job of working with the community schools. And if anybody's interested, contact Ted Chisholm. I did also do the AVICC voting, and I do want to note that one of the motions there was for a share of other taxes for municipalities and local governments. So I did vote for that one. And I got my vaccination last week, Thursday, so happy to report that. And I was also at the Modi Rural Directors meeting. So I think that's it for me for now. I was sad to have missed yesterday's records meeting. I have a personal or a family calendar, and I have to manually change it from or manually transcribe appointments, and somehow I missed that one. So it was just an oversight. My apologies. So I will never know how records are kept. On that note, back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on to Anything else going on in our agenda? I'm just going to double check with directors that there's nothing else that you want to interject before we continue on. And we have no new business today, but we are going to be going in camera. With that, we have a motion to go to that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting. Oh, sorry, Director McMahon.
Yes, does that cover the item I wish to add to the agenda?
No, we do need to add that one in as well, which is, just hang on one second and the corporate officer provided me the correct one and I didn't have it. Okay. So, we will also be adding another section onto there. So just hang on one second and I will read it all out here. Sorry, going back and forth between agendas here. So section 91 and A, D, I, J, K, and 2B of the community charter. So if I can have that motion that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with section 91, A, D, I, J, K, and 2B of the community charter, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Do we have any questions from our audience or our attendees that have no longer been here? No questions received. Thank you, IT. Does everyone need just 2 minutes to secure their space and maybe just a couple of minutes stretch your legs and everything? So if we come back at 3:35, so you can have 7 minutes. All right, and we will see you back in 7 minutes. and welcome back to the regular board meeting of the Sunshine Coast Regional District for May 27th, 2021. Thank you for staying with us. And with that, we'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn, please. So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you again when we meet again. Bye, everyone.
See you.
Oh, no questions from the audience, I'm assuming, IT.
Here, the ICC.
Yeah. Not me.